on to the preview of the Champions League final. And the funny thing is, on my run sheet, I've literally got Mbappe resigns, last day madness, Champions League final. So I really don't have any notes about this. I'm really just going to try to wing this. But it is obviously the Champions League final, Liverpool versus Real Madrid, happening this Sunday, or Sunday our time anyway, in Paris. So let's look at this from both teams' perspective. Let's look at it from a Liverpool perspective first, and let's look at what their preparation might be before the game. So obviously they come off a heartbreaking final day defeat. They lost the league basically. So obviously there's going to be a lot of emotional baggage and mental baggage coming from this game and coming from this weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to that. I mean, once again, if any team is going to be able to overcome that, it's going to be Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, right? They're mentality monsters, right? They just keep going. They just don't. They have no give, right? So I don't think that will necessarily play as big a part as perhaps if this happened to another team. So I think that's just credit to Jurgen Klopp. But from a tactical perspective, I assume Virgil van Dijk will be back. He didn't feature over the weekend, but I'm assuming that's precautionary, and assuming Mo Salah played and scored, so he'll be fine. Thiago came off with an injury, so I'm not exactly sure how that... I mean, that is a massive loss for Liverpool, because he's the piece de resistance of that Liverpool team. Jurgen Klopp faces an anxious wait over whether or not Thiago will be fit. So, I'm just trying to find if I can see. Jurgen Klopp, not good, but I can't say anymore. So, probably won't be fit. So, let's go on the assumption that Thiago won't be fit, because it doesn't look like he will. So, with that, the midfield will probably be Henderson, Fabinho, Keita, which provides a couple of things. You do miss out on that creativity and that artistic playmaking that Thiago offers. But in a game such as the Champions League final, I don't necessarily think that those type of players are hugely important, especially in a game that's going to be such high emotion, such high tension, high tempo. You're going to just need players who are just going to work and put 110%. So I do think Keita, Fabinho, Henderson is not the worst midfielder in the world. You assume their back five with Alisson in goal will be self-explanatory, so no need to talk about it there. And then the front three, depends what they'll do with front three. You'd assume Salah starts. You'd assume Sadio Mane starts. Does Luis Diaz start? Does Jota? Does Firmino? Who knows? But what Liverpool need to do and what Real Madrid have been so good at exploiting so far is they're just so on it. Like, they're so switched on, Real Madrid. And if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So Liverpool need to be on from the start. They can't be sloppy. And this is something that I have been critical of Liverpool in the past is they do maybe not start games, but they are susceptible to being a little bit sloppy in their possession. We saw it against Wolves. Wolves were the better team over the 90 minutes because Liverpool were sloppy. They weren't connecting as well as what they could have. Their passes weren't hitting the mark as well as what they would have wanted. So Liverpool need to be on from the start. Otherwise, Real Madrid will take an inch, or if you give Real Madrid an inch, I'll take a mile, right? So there's that, and there's also the way that Liverpool can win. I would assume it would have to be heavily fullback orientated, because you look at what Chelsea did to Real Madrid in the second leg. It was a lot of play down the flanks and like almost playing through those channels and really not allowing Real Madrid to hold a solid defensive line. So Trent and Robbo will be massive in this game. I also think that another reason why Keita in this game will be very good is because of those late runs into the box and those late charges that break up the defensive system. to an extent. Like you saw what Mason Mount was able to do in the second leg. You saw Phil Foden had quite a influence in the two legs. So these those that type of player could be very influential for them as well. And the positioning of the wingers will be very interesting, because of all of them, you say probably Luis Diaz is their most natural winger. He's probably the player that will hug the touchline a lot more, whereas Jota, Mane, Salah do like to come into those half spaces. Potential overloads on either fullback could be a massive avenue for success for Liverpool, because if you have Trent or Robert pushing high with either winger pressing that fullback, it creates those gaps, it creates those spaces, and Real Madrid aren't that adept at dealing with those type of plays and that type of system. We saw Chelsea were able to get success in the second leg using those high fullbacks. Obviously, Marcos Alonso scored a goal which was ruled out, and he was obviously very influential in that game as well as Loftus-Cheek, right? So if Loftus-Cheek and Marcos Alonso were able to play well against Real Madrid in that second leg in particular, then I'm pretty sure Robertson and Trent will have an impact as well. So that's probably how Liverpool should approach the game. How Real Madrid should is probably that midfield battle. If they get on top in that midfield battle, I'm not sure what the injuries are like, but I'm assuming it'll be Modric, Kroos, and Casemiro. Yeah. So there's no real issue there. Modric, Kroos, and Casemiro. Maybe with Valverde playing on that right and coming inside a little bit more. If they can get on top of that midfield battle, if they can overload that midfield and really create an uneasy environment for Liverpool to play in, that will be the way that they can control the game and get a foothold into the game. It's going to be interesting to see, because I do think that we've seen Real Madrid can like that, literally. We saw Man City scored 5 goals in 3 goals in 5 minutes. Real Madrid can score 3 goals in 2 minutes. So against City that they can do that. So Real Madrid will have that faith in themselves that regardless of the scoreline, they're still in the game. And when you have Karim Benzema playing some of the best football of his career, Rodrigo's hitting form, Vinicius Junior is going to give Trent Alexander-Arnold some problems. I can tell you that for free. He's going to give him some problems, and that's probably they're probably going to target that right hand side. A lot of teams target that right hand side because it's probably the most susceptible side defensively in that Liverpool team. And people say Trent's a bad defender. He's not a bad defender. He's just not as good as a defender as others in that position, which makes him look shit. Or as good as Robbo is in terms of defending, which makes him look bad. He's not a bad defender, but Vinicius Junior is just so good that he will cause Trent some problems. And as well, Matip plays on that side as well. So there's that weakness, if you were to call it that point of susceptibility for Liverpool. So Vinicius Junior and Benzema are going to be massive in that game. So is the midfield. But defensively, Real Madrid, just there's something about that defensive unit which screams vulnerability, and they're going to need to be on it because they like Diaz, Mane, Salah, Jota have pace that they haven't versed yet. Like PSG, obviously with Mbappe, is quick, and Mbappe caused Real Madrid a lot of problems with that blistering pace in behind. So with Diaz, Salah, and Mane or Jota, or even Firmino isn't slow, right? So with those quick players getting in behind and using those intricate feet to get in between defenders and in between the lines, it will cause serious problems for Real Madrid. So that's something that they need to be very wary of coming into this game. Like I said, they'll be on it. Like they won't think that they won't be able to win this game. Real Madrid should. I mean, Real Madrid have had the harder run through. Real Madrid have had the harder. Oh my god! It's knockout stages. They've had the harder knockout stages. That could either mean one or two things. Could they be burnt out ever so slightly for having games go to extra time and having games go all the way till the death. Both the quarterfinal and semi-final legs have gone to the very last day, or the very last minute rather. I think even they beat PSG in normal time, but that will either give them hope and confidence that they can just win no matter what the result, and they will be energized and they will be emotionally charged in this game to back up those results, or they could be spent, they could be just emotionally drained and physically drained about, we have to go through this again into the final, we have to go through it again, we can't not do this type of thing. We can't go through this again type of thing. So it's either going to work one or two ways. They're either going to be emotionally charged and fired up because of the journey they've gone through, or they're going to be spent. And they obviously will be used to that level of opposition, which is something that Liverpool haven't been used to. They've had a relatively easy run to the final. I know Villarreal, people heavily underestimated them, and they gave Liverpool a big scare, right? So, again, that could work one or two ways. They got through each tie relatively comfortably. I know Villarreal did give him a scare, but he was comfortable in the end. So it's they're either going to be fresh, ready, energised for this game, or the Wolves result, the losing the Premier League, could just sap their energy a little bit, and then they won't be maybe as sharp to versus top side because they've had a relatively easy run. So a lot of storylines could come out of this game. Obviously, Mo Salah, there's no Sergio Ramos for Mo Salah to 2 foot, so maybe it'll be Alaba this year, who knows. But obviously Salah, redemption, and I think Liverpool will be ready for redemption, because not only did they lose in the Champions League final all those years ago, they lost last year. It was last year to them in the quarterfinals. Yes, it was 3-1. So, and that was the game where Vinicius Junior gave Trent a bath. So, a lot of storylines, a lot of potential what ifs coming out of this game. But just to give my quick prediction, I am going to go with 2-0 Liverpool. No, 3-1 Liverpool. I just feel like they're going to get on top early. They'll score a couple of quick goals. I feel like it could be 2-0 Liverpool at halftime, because I feel like they'll be on it. I feel like Klopp will make them be on it. Yeah, and then I feel like Real Madrid. I feel like it could go 3-0 Liverpool before PSG score a consolation, or PSG. Just guys, Real Madrid. I feel like it could go 3-0 Liverpool before Real Madrid score a consolation, or it could go 2-1 and then Real Madrid go for the final goal, and then they get hit on the break. But who knows? I think Liverpool will win, and I think it won't be comfortable. It won't be comfortable. Despite what I said about 3-1, I feel like Real Madrid will give them a big game, a good game. So can't wait for that. The quadruple is no longer on. The treble is on, but the cup treble, the League Cup, FA Cup, Champions League, which is still one hell of an achievement, right? So as a neutral, I don't want Liverpool to win that game, because I really just don't like Real Madrid, and I've slagged them off on this podcast so many times. So seeing Real Madrid lose would be great. It's probably going to come back to bite my ass, but yeah, who knows? And then obviously Liverpool, at least they stand for something, you know? At least their club stands for something. Anyway, let's move on to who went into footed.